So to get this started, maybe Sergey and Proto, do you want to maybe just share what you've been working on, how things have been going, and then we can move into kind of you sharing your screen, Sergey.
Sure. Sounds great. Yeah, I'll provide a little overview. Um, and yeah, just to double down and, be a little bit forthcoming about what we can share with regards to the live client. It's been really cool. We've had internal conversations on the dev side about what we can do, what with regards to testnet and when we can begin previewing builds that we have working internally that, they're incomplete, there's bugs and stuff like that, but at least you can get your hands on them. And I really hope that we can start showing you some of this stuff because I'm working a little bit ahead of the team, obviously, and on the conceptual side of kind of mapping out what flows need to be built for the game. But what's really cool is watching the stuff get built live. So, and I hope we can put that in your hands sooner than later. Obviously, we need like Darkos here to attest to that. But that is the best kind of like barometer for showing you guys just how far this game has come, beyond the just the pretty pictures and conceptual side that we're going to share today. A lot of this stuff is really, really fun to mess around with in the work in progress thing. So we hope to have that a lot sooner than, for example, when we launch the next test phase. But yeah, and with that said, markets, I'm excited to show you guys to like lead you guys through. I've been teasing a little bit of images on the market side. I feel like we're about 90% of the way through mapping out the whole flow for how markets will work, and we haven't built any of it. And in the meantime, we're also right in the middle right now of building the flow for ship travel, the navigation between asteroids, sending a ship, loading it with crew, loading it with items, sending it from point A to point B. We're right in the thick of that right now, and it is pretty exciting, but it's a little bit too early. So now you guys get the markets view. Hopefully, within a couple weeks, we will be able to show you some fun stuff with traveling between asteroids.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been super excited to see the travel UI and the travel client work that's happening right now. It's really tweaking at the nerdy parts of my brain very well. Let's just put it that way. It's really exciting. So yeah, looking forward to sharing that in the future. For myself, I've been pretty much doing what I've been doing for the past while, which is working on the production chain recipes. Been trying to get through the last of the refinery recipes. There's a lot of, I think, alloys and sort of raw material initial processing steps that I've been working on lately, getting those into a position where the actual ratios of what goes in and comes out are produced, as I've described in the past. So not a whole lot to sort of share there, other than particulars, unless you want to like know what austenitic nechrome is made out of, or this or that. I could get into that in too much detail, but otherwise, yeah, I think mostly just I'm going to be happy to answer production chain related questions today, talk through the marketplace mechanics if that needs to be done.
Yeah, I think, over time, Proto, I know we've talked about this briefly, but we might do breakout kind of non-AMA talks about production chains and how to refine these materials best, or whatever might be around strategy and production chains. I don't think that fits very well in the container of the AMA, but it's always good to check in and see what we're working on and what might be some challenges in these AMAs. But I think as we get closer to launch and all these things come together much more clearly, we're going to have a lot of opportunity to talk about these things in a not so much AMA format, but more just let's talk as everyone who wants to play this game and figure out, opportunities maybe that people are identifying within these chains, and maybe ask Proto questions about why things are a certain way. Over his, I think we are safe to say that Proto is a polymath, and he is addicted to Wikipedia and now ChatGPT, and knows a lot about chemistry, engineering, science, math, everything like that. And he's going to be the god of production chains. So, the more we can hear from him, the better when it comes to that. Proto, you want to add anything to that?
You've described me pretty well. That's all.
I'll add to that. It was just I remember a couple months ago talking to Proto about these chains and asking if he would like to describe each of the processes, like write tooltips for them, because essentially this is one of the fun parts of bringing the world to life, where you could see like, oh hey, we actually have chemical processes. Not only that, but these chemical processes, it's pretty awesome. We almost have we can more or less plagiarize Wikipedia, because all these things actually exist. But that's a part that will be super exciting for me. There is the gameplay balance side of it, but to that extent, Proto's handling both of those very well. Both the balance part and the explaining why two things come together to form, a third or more different byproducts. It's really, really cool how true to life all of these things are, and how much of a chemistry textbook is going to be included in this game when it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the balance has actually been pretty challenging to maintain with these production chains. A lot of the time, if I fully modeled the chemistry and industrial processes that went into any of these given materials, it would be an entire game into itself. Like, let's play ferrite manufacturing today. It's just an entire game dedicated to this one thing, all the steps that go into it. And it's that's not us. That's not influence. We're not trying to model everything perfectly. So it's always a question of what do I leave out? What do I simplify? What do I keep? What's important to keep? What's salient? What it makes the game more fun, more interesting for a bunch of nerds that I know our audience is. So that's always sort of the top of my mind when I'm looking at any of these processes and trying to figure out how to model them and what should go in and what shouldn't go in. And I think we're coming into a pretty good spot here. It's deep and complicated and there's a lot going on, but once you understand the basics of how it works, I think that knowledge will be applicable everywhere. It won't just be a ton of special cases and different things you have to memorize. It'll be it all flow together. It all makes sense in the same sort of way. So yeah, super excited for that. It's fun.
I've got to add here, because I think we kind of talked about this in our daily stand up as a team today, but the idea of what kind of influence is, and I think it's a game for people who are curious, and I think the way that we're building it is just a way that players will be able to get in pretty simply, but you're not going to be able to understand everything immediately, nor should you try. This is going to be a progressive learning experience that you can dive deep in, and the emergence of gameplay options and what you can do is clear as day. And we can't predict what will or what won't happen, or what will or won't be created. But I think overall it's setting that foundation as solid as possible, so that you guys can jump to conclusions pretty easily, in these production chains or something. As soon as you have some basic knowledge, you can now apply that in a lot of different ways. And I'm really, really excited about this. I think some of you guys saw in the morning, I was kind of talking about what player experience might look like. And what's most important for them in the beginning. But this is going to become more and more something that we want to talk about as we get closer to phase 4 and launch. But without further ado, I really think that we Proto, I see you might want to add something. But after that, maybe let's dive into Sergey, you sharing your screen and talking about markets.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, sort of, I think production chains in general are really. I lost what I forgot what I was going to say. Let's just do markets. I'll come back to that later.
All right.
Train of thought left the station.
It's all good. We'll come back to it. I'm going to hop into screen share and walk you guys through markets.
Drum roll. Also,
are you guys seeing it?
Oh yeah. I just want to say really quickly, if anyone has the Discord app on their computer or phone or whatever, usually looking at screen sharing, it flickers less if you're using the application versus desktop. If you're having any issues with that might be something you want to change over to.
Okay. Other than that, are you guys all seeing my screen well?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, cool. Excellent. I've got a list of these snapshots of various bits and pieces of experience, and we can just start out right here with a view of lot view on a marketplace. So this marketplace, it's one of the 3 public buildings we're going to have an influence. This is going to be one of the 3 places where you're going to have a massive, the massive nature of the game is going to come into play. Players are going to come together here to do buying and selling. And this is an example of, for example, you're going to come down to whether or not you are the owner. You're going to name your marketplace. I just called it pretend it's Joe's Spacing Emporium. It's going to be a lot similar on Adalia Prime. There's going to be some information here about the marketplace, maybe some weekly volume numbers, how many orders it has, how long the marketplace has been open for. Trying to give people a little bit of opportunity to kind of really put their own spin, because a marketplace is going to be one of the key driving parts of like early player-to-player interaction and possibly competition over these tax rates. So the things that are going to define the various aspects of what you can do with your marketplace, you can set a tax rate, and you can choose which items. Not every marketplace is going to be able to list every item in the game, and that's intentional. So if you want to have, a stranglehold on literally everything on a particular asteroid, you're going to need to build multiple marketplaces to list all the products. And that'll, I think, I'll open up tons of opportunities for like arbitrage and people having like niches, because not everyone, by design, not everyone's going to be able to fill a marketplace that has the best price for every single good in the game. But here's just an example of someone, there's a marketplace here. This is part of the new HUD UI, but you can see in this example, this marketplace, I have 2 open orders at this marketplace. I'm also the owner of this marketplace, so I'm going to have some owner settings that I can change here. But when you drill down deeper into that, you are going to get this screen. And actually start with the selling side. There are to view the things that are for sale at a marketplace, you're going to open up this screen. It's going to tell you, hey, this marketplace lists 10 items. This is something the owner has set. Proto has been going back and forth. We don't know the exact cap on number of items you can list, but in this example, there's 10 items listed for sale. You have a bunch of tools for finding, if you want to just like quickly type in the exact thing you want to find. And you have this big toggle here, which is toggle between buying and selling mode. So right now, this is, I'm looking at everyone who is selling items on this marketplace. I can also pop into the buying side of the marketplace, and I can look, hey, if I want to quickly, if I have, landed on this asteroid, I want to quickly offload some of my goods. I know that there are buyers immediately. There's buy orders here for these items, but these items I can sell, but I won't be paid immediately. I would essentially have to put in a limit sell order and say, hey, I'm willing to, sell some hydrogen here, but there's no buyers of hydrogen. And this will hopefully drive the kind of liquidity and all the other fun marketplace parts of the game, where you can set up a marketplace, but not only it's not enough to simply set up a marketplace. You can set up a marketplace and no one's ever going to come use it. So you have to drive people, you have to drive goods and services and liquidity and kind of player action into your marketplace. And if you do that successfully, basically that's going to be one of the biggest economic prizes in the game, because you're going to be able to capture a percentage of every order with your marketplace tax rate. So this is an individual marketplace screen. I will then go up to what is the asteroid-wide markets overview screen. You guys might have seen this. I've already teased this one a little bit. But this one is something we came to. We kind of thought beyond one individual marketplace lot, the difference between multiple lots on a big multi-market asteroid, and I think really Adalia Prime. It's going to start out as Adalia Prime in the very beginning of the game, before eventually, maybe some other player-owned asteroids will take over as big market hubs. But initially, the biggest one is going to be Adalia Prime. So I just mocked this up, and you're going to want an overview of, well, what is sold on Adalia Prime? Because in theory, I'll touch my ship down, and I want to sell some stuff on Adalia Prime. But the difference between where I touch my ship down, and there might be, in this hypothetical example, Adalia Prime has got 1.7 million lots. Maybe this is a mid-game sort of version of Adalia Prime. Like, players have built over 100 marketplaces already on Adalia Prime, so it's already bustling. There's tons of goods for sale. This is the kind of grand stock market view of everything on Adalia Prime. And from there, you would be able to drill down. But this grand stock market view just allows you to see, basically, here are the 10 top most resources for sale on Adalia Prime by volume. You're going to have a stock ticker kind of thing. And you're going to have these like kind of price increments and decrements. If we have the tools to implement these, I think it would be like really, really cool. But like, this is a grand summary of, you don't know how many core marketplaces sell core samplers. You just know across the whole of Adalia Prime, there might be 12,000 core samplers for sale. And this will be a very useful view for multi-market asteroids. And where that gets to is, okay, there's a couple other views here. One view is the difference between right here. You're just going to see this is the most recently traded goods. So you can see these. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the highest volume or whatever, but this view is going to change just based on what changed hands recently. But there's another view in this, and this is the tree view, which is going to help people like understand basically how the resources are subdivided in the game. This is going to go into this is going to be mirrored in the production chains resource view, by the way. But if you wanted to not search by name, if you had no idea what the name of everything was in the game, and I imagine a lot of people will start out by learning this, you will go into tree view, and it should be fairly easy to find all the things. So here's every resource that's for sale in Adalia Prime in essentially folder view, and you can pick in and you can just find just the raw materials. Just go to those ship parts, see all the ship parts that are for sale, pick out the right ship part you want, place a buy order for it. But there's that. And okay, going a little further, deeper into that, like say I start out in Adalia Prime and I pick one of the things. I know hydrogen is for sale. Hydrogen could be for sale in a dozen or more marketplaces on Adalia Prime. How do I find the best priced hydrogen, and where do I need to go for that? You would go into this meta resource pair screen. So this example is water, for example, but it could be anything. Here it says all the water that's for sale at Adalia Prime. It says right here, water, 14 marketplaces sell water. The total amount of water I could buy if I went to every single one of those, if I wanted to buy out an asteroid's entire supply of water, here's how much I could. It's a different question of can I even transport all that water, or can I buy it? But this is the total amount of water currently for sale on Adalia Prime. And it's an aggregate of all of these. But if I wanted to find the best price for water, this becomes a game of visiting each one of these marketplaces individually. And you can sort here, you can sort by best price, but this might be the best price for just a small amount of water. Some other ones might have a better average price. You can filter here by tax rate. Like some of these things might be high tax marketplaces that offer good prices. So this should be a very interesting screen to go through. And of course, whatever the top one, the current top sorted one that you have selected is here. And this is where your marketplace, this is where I think you would want to be to position yourself to be the most competitive marketplace. You want to be at the top of this list. So when people look for water on whatever Adalia Prime or highly competitive one, it would help to see yours up here. So whatever one is selected. So you would then go and see, oh hey, now I want to look at water at Joe's Spacing Emporium. And when you go into that, you would see this screen. And this screen is it shows the depth chart, which means all the combined limit buy and limit sell orders. If any of you guys have seen a depth chart on any stock or kind of crypto trading exchange, this borrows a lot from here. But now this drills down to specifically water at Joe's. And I can see that there is this much quantity of water for sale at such and such price. And if I wanted to, for example, place a market buy order, if I just wanted to buy up a whole chunk of these sell orders right here, you could get a sense for, it would basically start from the top, start from the best price, and buy downward into the depth. So you can kind of, and then after you buy this amount, what that makes the new best price is like whatever that amount that you've highlighted. So you would move the price if you bought a large chunk of water. Those orders will be filled. So the next best price. So this is the current center price. This is how you figure out. You guys have ever seen one of these on Bitcoin or ETH or something like that? It essentially tells you this is how the market knows what the price of Bitcoin or ETH is to US dollars at any given point. And this is basically the price of water to Sway. So this is a pair chart. And from here, you will go in. This is a preview of the type of order that you want to get. This is a visual preview across the whole depth of a particular marketplace. And from there, you would go in. I'm pretty close to finalizing these screens, but there's a couple more updates. But you will get a proper, action window, same as any other game action in the game. You're going to have an order form. You're going to double check your quantities, everything like that. You get to fill out an order, and either if it's a limit order, you would set that order and you would have to cancel it because it would, basically be set for forever until you canceled it. Or if it's a market order, it would essentially attempt to fill it immediately, or tell you, that you don't have enough to fill that market order because there's not enough liquidity currently to support it. And that
say, if your brain isn't melting already, I don't know what to say. These charts are incredible. I mean, just the depth here that we're offering in terms of marketplaces is, I've never seen anything like this in another game.
Well, I worked on Eve, and Eve has also pretty deep markets similar to this. But I've tried to spice it up with a little more visuals here. Eve didn't have a depth chart, but it had a historical chart, right? So if you know the other one, which is the candlestick chart, it's pretty cool, but we might support it later. For now, it's a little too data heavy for us to support like price history. But instead, we get a depth chart, and hopefully, and a lot of these things, I don't know, the depth chart looks really nice for high liquidity assets, but we shall see, because I do not suspect that high liquidity will be possible for every type of thing in our game. There's a lot of items that will just be like, maybe there's no sell orders, or just a handful of sell orders for a particular thing. And you're going to come in there and it's going to be tough, right? So you're going to either have to make the market yourself for it, or you're going to see a very sparsely populated market, or you're going to have to turn to basically production chains, because maybe some of these things you're going to have to manufacture it on your own if the market doesn't have enough at the right price that you want.
Yeah, I mean, overall, the marketplace mechanic for anybody who is familiar with like using these, centralized or decentralized exchanges, like there should be some pretty familiar feeling components to it. This is an order book based exchange, so that experience hopefully will transfer over completely well for any of you who are familiar with that. But yeah, the broad picture here is basically that every marketplace building has some set of materials that can be bought or sold on it, selected by the owner of that marketplace. The overall Asteroid, marketplace scene, there's that screen that would show, if you're looking for a particular material, like where on the Asteroid is that stuff being sold. You can do that searching up there. To place an order, to match an order, you always have to go to a specific marketplace building, and you're matching, you're placing an order on that building. So that's sort of the thing you have to keep in mind, is that there's always this sort of drilling down step if you start at the Asteroid level, where you have to go to the specific marketplace before you can sort of figure out what you're take an actual action there. But I think you guys will get used to that pretty quickly.
And there's this button too, which, by the way, if I started out by looking at all the water on a daily prime, I end up, checking out Joe's Spacing Emporium because it seems to have a good price for me. But then I'm like, okay, well, water's cool, but what else does Joe's sell? Well, I would click this button and it would take me back to this screen, and you can see, oh, besides water, Joe's also has orders for all these other things.
Yep, so that screen there is like the single marketplace set of things that marketplace is selling.
Yeah, something that we might want to just talk about a little bit, I know it's been chatted in the comments, but just so that it's on the recording as well, is kind of the fact that you have a limited amount of goods that you can put on on your individual marketplace. That number is to be decided. Between 10 and 50 is kind of the rough numbers that we're giving right now. And that, if you want to remove a good and add a new good, if you're at your limit, we're still working out the final details there, but you essentially at Proto, maybe things have changed, but that would stay open until all the goods would either be no longer there or available, but you wouldn't be able to add more goods to that specific item. So it's just whatever items are left there could be sold, and then you could add a new item to your market once they're gone or canceled.
Yeah,
that's right.
Trades are an interesting thing. We're still sort of working out the mechanics on.
Yeah, you would be able to, if you have a batch of items, you would obviously put them up on the marketplace. That would kind of put them in escrow. If you want to sell, right? And you're saying, I'm willing to sell this much water for this much price. It would create a limit sell order there. Any number of those waters could be bought from you, but not guaranteed to buy the entire tranche, basically, of water. So you could be left with some extra amounts in your warehouse.
There's a great question that Darius has right now, which is, will there be an open and new window functionality in terms of having multiple markets open at the same time? I don't think that's built into this right now, but maybe Sergey or Proto, you guys have talked about this before, or whether or not, that's possible?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, and I will say not according to the current UI scheme. We're kind of operating on more of the modal thing. There's nothing stopping you from doing multiple browser tabs, though.
Yeah, in general, like there's sort of like the operating system style of window where you can have a bunch of them open, you can move them around, you can open them, close them, resize them, and all that. And that's not what we're doing here. We're trying to focus your attention on one particular thing that you're doing at any given time. And if you want to, have a bunch of all that data in front of you, I think the multiple tabs is probably the way you would go there. But to answer some of these other questions, there's a bunch that are stacked up here. Nathrex was asking, how do I place an order on the Asteroid-wide marketplace view? Would I have to select the specific marketplace, or would the view show me the distance from my ship, warehouse, and price, and then can I choose the most convenient one? So every order has to be placed on a specific marketplace. You can't place one like on the quote-unquote global asteroid market because there isn't one. That's just sort of an overview of all the deals that are available on the different specific marketplaces. So you would go to a particular marketplace, and you'd select the product that you wanted to buy or sell, and then you'd be on that screen with the depth chart, and then you could select particular amount that you wanted to sell, and then the price that you wanted to sell it at, and you'd create a limit order. by selecting the source inventory that was coming from. That would just be an action that you would take, and sort of similar for the converse, and for market orders where you're matching an existing order for the same thing. Only you'll see how much of the depth chart you'd be eating into when you're doing that. And obviously, if there's no liquidity, you couldn't do that. But yeah, you always have to select a particular spot. As far as distances from your ship or warehouse, that's kind of on you. Because when you go to a marketplace view, it actually in the background takes you to a lot view for that marketplace. So the market view is in the lot view. So if you wanted to, you could zoom out. You could close that window and sort of zoom out and see where that lot is, and you'd have a distance right there. So that's one way to do it. You could also, if you really care about distance more than anything, you could actually go and filter by lots, just by marketplace buildings, and then you could sort of click around the closest marketplace buildings, so where you want to go, where your ship is, or where your base is that you care about. You could do it that way, and then you wouldn't necessarily be guaranteed that there'd be water in any of those marketplaces. You'd have to look for that, but that would be another way to do it if you really cared about distance.
Yeah, and distance really is a factor of just the time it takes to complete the order, because we're talking about ground transfer distances. If you landed, I don't know, if you landed any spaceport on Adalia Prime, it's just a matter of time for you to transfer the goods to the distance. The real limiting factor is your storage space, obviously, how much you can store on your ship if you don't have warehouses on Adalia Prime.
Yeah, Skippy asked actually a question here that ties really well into that. Like, can you see other asteroid marketplaces if you are not there? I.e., if you're not on that asteroid. And so the basic mechanic for a marketplace is that you need to have your crew present on that asteroid so that they can come and take any actions that you're trying to take. So if you want to place an order, or if you want to match an order, or if you want to cancel an order, you need your maybe not the cancel order, but otherwise you need your crew there to take that action. So that's essential. However, you don't need your crew there to look at it, which is what Skippy was asking. You can look at the marketplaces anywhere in the belt at any time. You just can't do anything with it. Like, you can just frustrate yourself by looking at it and be like, "That's a good deal. If only I were there."
Yes,
which is kind of fun. But in terms of moving materials, that's also something that is part of placing an order or matching an order. Is that you have to select a source or a destination inventory to send those materials from or receive them into. Then before the materials become available, either on the marketplace if you're selling, or in your own inventory to use if you're buying, they have to transfer to the marketplace, and then from the marketplace to your destination inventory. So those are two separate things that both involve time, like getting your crew there and getting your materials there or back, that are both important, and you'll need to keep track of both of those. In the window that Sergey mentioned that he's still working on, we'll show those times before you approve a particular action, so you'll be able to sort of get the overview of how long things will take.
Yeah, the distance. And this, I'll just add that this concept right here takes that particular question into account. So if you see, so right here, this is the asteroid-wide overview of water, and there is a column here that I built in that we want to try to go that says distance away, and it says NA, not applicable, and every time in distance away here. And I imagine that if you're seeing NA here, that means you are viewing Adalia Prime's markets without a crew on Adalia Prime. If your crew was actually present on the surface here, those distances would be populated and you'd be able to sort by distance. But as of right now, you are just browsing, seeing what's on Adalia Prime without the ability to effectively take any action because your crew is elsewhere.
That makes a ton of sense. Belarus has a great question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, another question. I think this one's going to be a very popular question for us to answer, but is there the ability for bookmarks or favorites when it comes to marketplaces? Sergey, maybe you want to. I don't think that's currently in the scope, but I don't know if that's something that is or whether or not.
We have lot favorites, right? So you could favorite marketplaces that way.
Yeah, I think those will be nameable as well. So I think, while not directly what you're asking under, I think there is a way to do that. And maybe there's opportunity to improve that or enhance merchants' specific abilities for doing this in time. So I know that we're kind of trying to get the basic flow for everything to be usable and have players have a ton of fun, but also leave opportunities to improve through discovery and things like that. So I think there is definitely an argument to make that bookmarks and favorites are important as a base feature, and I think it's addressed, but not directly currently.
I think the two favorites, correct me if I'm wrong, Sergey, that we have are for asteroids and for lots. Is that right? The way to
You know what? I wish I could
asteroids.
correct. I wish I could correct you, but I do not believe we confirmed lots yet. Although, due to data availability, but I would certainly love to do that. And that's basically the level that we would aspire to get to. If you can mark a lot as a favorite for any reason, that would allow you to favorite a marketplace and return to that marketplace. I also, I don't know if we've looked at it, but I do imagine so with the ability to, if you have a building, you can name that building, and there should be a search by name kind of a thing, which would just allow you to, again, people to differentiate based on like, oh, hey, I named my market as something cool and memorable, and then anyone could just type in that name and it would bounce you directly to that marketplace if you knew the asteroid that marketplace was on.
Yep, we hope that names will be a good sort of easily graspable way to define things in this game. Be that a ship or a crew or an asteroid or a building in this case. Names will be pretty powerful, we think. So going back to smaller questions here, Stellar has a question: can tax be set to different values according to whitelist? Great question. The answer is no for exploitation, right at exploitation. There will be either a single tax. I think a single tax value is probably what you can expect for exploitation, where it's a percentage between 0 and some limit that you can choose that is applied. We've been going back and forth on this, whether it's entirely out of the sell side or whether it comes equally out of buy and sell side. I don't think there's a strong answer there yet, but either way, there will be a certain percentage you set that you, the marketplace owner, would receive if the buying and the selling crews both had no bonuses or balances on their merchanting abilities. So basically, if they had one standard merchant with no extra abilities, no traits, just they had one merchant, that's what you would receive. When they have bonuses, either because they have a bunch of merchants on their crew or they have merchant related traits, that will actually cut into the tax that you receive, so that they that player will get a better deal. They'll pay less fee on that trade. So this is sort of a big incentive for players to play with more merchants. So typically when you set a tax on your marketplace, you can expect you'll probably get less than that in practice, because a lot of people will be using merchant heavy crews to do trading. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes we'll have 0 merchants and they'll just pay double the tax, which is fun for you. Depends on how desperate they are, I guess. But that's something to keep in mind. In terms of whitelist, setting the taxes based on some external factor, I think we would love to have that, and that would be a place for one of these sort of third-party contract hooks. I think we're probably not going to launch exploitation with that specifically for taxes for marketplaces, but I could totally see that being one of the places we add that hook in future. So you can keep your eyes open for that at some point. Let's see. So Mathrax is asking, is there a fee for placing or canceling an order? I could see somebody trolling by putting a ton of fuel and then taking it away. It's a good question. Keep in mind that you do need your crew present to place orders, and also to have space reserved for selling something in your marketplace. So there are costs to having those up, even if you're planning to be a troll and yank them again later. If you do that, if you are a troll, keep in mind that your social credit is probably going to go down a lot. People are going to look at your crew, because you'll be able to see what crew placed certain orders sometimes. And you'll be like, that person is a troll. I'm just not going to bother with that. It harms your ability to play the game in a lot of cases.
Also, aren't you always running the risk of your order getting filled?
Yeah, I mean, there's no guarantee that somebody won't just come and actually match it. So, there's a lot going on into that makes it a little bit more risky, tricky, costly to be a troll. And other people might benefit from that.
That ties in also to the question Lewin had, and maybe I was signing for a package, maybe you already answered this, but being able to kind of blacklist or whitelist people to particular marketplaces.
Yeah, I think that's that's part of the functionality for managing permissions for a building for the public buildings, including marketplaces. That's certainly something you can do. Is stop certain crews from visiting that marketplace. I think there's actually a second part to Nathan's question, which is, what if you create a marketplace that has a bunch of fuel, and then you lure people there expecting to be able to buy it, and then you yank that order, and then they're stuck at your asteroid, which is kind of an interesting trolling mechanism. I think typically traveling to other asteroids to get good deals will be considered a lot more risky, just because A, they could be a troll, but B, somebody else might get there first. Like as you're traveling, somebody could just be like, "Oh, that's a great deal," and get there before you. And so always, I would say travel to other asteroids with caution. Do that with a plan in mind, especially if it's fuel related. Like, depending on the fuel to be there or propellant to be there when you want it to be, unless it's like a huge market with a bunch of depth like AP or some of these bigger asteroids that have propellant for sale, like Patagon or whatever. Like those, you would probably be able to trust that there's going to be propellant there. But for a tiny little asteroid where there's like one order for market for propellant, tread carefully when planning your trip there.
And also, it would be a very elaborate troll, I think, and it would have to be highly targeted to one person, and you'd have to keep track of their ship and like when it would arrive at your asteroid, so you just kind of like yank it away at the very last minute. Like I imagine there's a fair amount of social engineering that would have to go into that. That could even, I don't know, leads to some like really interesting emergent gameplay situations if you actually manage to con someone right into arriving for a really, really great deal, right? The deal is too good to be true, and then it's gone by the time you arrive.
Yeah, and that's a situation where somebody's going to make a lot of noise if that happens. Like this cruise, to me, I'm stuck, and then they're going to get in trouble with everybody else, basically.
Yeah, I see that this could potentially happen with like you make a one-legged trip to an asteroid that says it has a lot of fuel. I think that might be the most non-trolly way of this happening. And once you get there, maybe there's less fuel. Someone could have bought it. Someone could have revoked it because they want to use it. I see that being a potential issue when you're going to a market with a low liquidity of fuel and you're not making sure that you have fuel for both there and back already. But again, that's more a player caution. Like if you've chosen to go to an asteroid with only enough fuel to get there and not back, you better be pretty certain that there's going to be fuel for you once you get there.
There's some questions here about like accessing the marketplace, as a subset of the public buildings. And a reminder there that the mechanics that we have for permissions and access is basically that there's kind of conceptually 4 different tiers that you can think about. There's public, where literally anybody can use it. Use it, not like own it, but use it. There's private, where only you can use it, which is sometimes kind of silly. Like, why would a private marketplace? What's the point of that? But it's an option for like a habitat or other things that spaceport that you might personally want to retain private use of.
It's just standard, yeah.
That's standard. There's whitelist, which is where you can set some set of crews, just like in the sort of default UI in the game. So these crews have access, nobody else. Then there's the third-party contract approach, like the hook approach. And what you do there, that's how you would sort of enable like these, like I want to ban UEC, like, okay, so write a third-party contract that tries to keep tabs on who UEC is, or looks at a registry of alliances and filters out those crews, or any other logic that you might want to do, like having certain levels of roles within your organization that only certain roles have access to those buildings. Like that's all. We're going to put that in the community's hands. We're not going to try to build any kind of logic around that. So the third-party contract option would be what you want for any kind of these complex permission management systems. Thunder is asking, is there a way to search system-wide for a product or resource, or just the asteroid you're on? So we have this list view, which is jokingly called
actually, yes.
And list view, you can actually search for what we're basically calling like an asteroid marketplace product pair. So you're not looking for individual orders when you're doing that, like limit buy or sell orders, but what you're looking for is basically a product in a particular marketplace on a particular asteroid. And so you could set certain things like what's the minimum ask or the maximum bid. You can find those sorts of things, and what's the tender price. Just basic information about that product on a particular marketplace on a particular asteroid. If you went and searched for, say, like, I want to find all the water in the belt, you could do that, and the results won't be like every single water order in the belt, but it will be every single marketplace on every single asteroid that has water. So I think that answers your question. Yes, there's a way to search.
Actually, this is one of the screens. Yes, I didn't get a chance to fully kick this out yet, because I think there's maybe some tweaks we still want to do. But yes, there would be a way to basically non-visually search the whole belt, and the return would be like this. This is our list view spreadsheet mode. You could compare multiple marketplaces that list something belt wide in Elasticsearch mode, which is super powerful.
Yep. So this is, again, considered a little bit more of an advanced mode where you're sort of looking for opportunities across the belt. Whereas if you're on an asteroid, that's something you're probably going to be doing day to day, and that's why we have the sort of prettier, gussied up like asteroid markets view for that use case. Skep was asking, we can assign a crew to each market for the crew bonuses, but can the crew also for every other stuff also be used for every other stuff on the asteroid? So the market related bonuses for the crew are passive. So this is something that we've thought a bit about, and I would say we don't have a final answer on that yet. But where we're coming down is that crew bonuses, including traits, including classes, including jobs from the Arvad crew, those apply to actions that you take. It's not like you have a crew that is like associated with a building or owns a building and like passively has bonuses applied to it. It's that when you take an action, those bonuses are relevant. So you might take a manage marketplace action, and that, if you have bonuses that let you do something special, like set more products available for use in that marketplace, that's when those become available. It's not like it's a continuous effect that crew is sort of having or exuding that applies to things passively. So you don't actually assign a crew to each market. They're owned by crews, but there's not like an attached crew to it. You build the marketplace with a crew. That's not actually going to do anything special to the marketplace. It'll just be the same marketplace no matter who builds it. Then when you manage it, we go to manage it, like that's the time at which like setting higher fees or setting lower fees maybe, or setting what products are available for sale. That's when bonuses that your crew might have would apply at the time that you take that action.
I think there's another screen here that I haven't shown, which is, right here, giving you guys a little extra preview of the settings you can set, manager settings. And this is where you can add and remove products to your, listed out of your maximum amount.
So all the public buildings will have something similar to this, where there's manager settings. So you manage like the permissions I was talking about earlier with like whitelisting. You can manage like the tax rate or the fee rate depending on what building it is. You can manage various other things related to that type of public building. And that's basically you can visualize it like as an action. Like you go to this window, you make some changes if you want, and then when you are ready to finalize those changes, you would submit a transaction to the chain, and that'll modify the building in that way. That's the time at which bonuses are relevant. Admiral is asking a question. Can a single crew manage multiple marketplaces? Yes. A crew can own as many marketplaces as they want, and any crew who owns a marketplace can manage it, can take that manage marketplace action. Same with all public buildings. You can have as many as you want. There's not a limit. Since again, they're not like passively associated in any way. It's just you own them and you take actions on them to manage them.
Going down questions, maybe asked one that was, will it be automatic that your marketplace show up on kind of the system-wide view? Yeah, that's automatic. You don't have to like register or pay anything to be listed there.
The spreadsheet mode or view, list view will just automatically update with the data that our server or indexer notices as it comes in on the blockchain.
Blackout, your question about in the future, will it be the ability to build orbital structures such as marketplaces? We could talk all day long about what future, things might or might not be in the game. I think it's just too early to tell you yes or no on that. I know if you talk to Proto or myself, we would absolutely love the, space station style things to grow out. But really, I think there has to be a strong need for that, and tying it to land that's already owned. If this game truly gets so busy that space on land is like not very abundant anymore for players to find, then a clear additive to that would be to have orbital structures that can be space station habitats, things like that, and tie them directly to asteroids that are already owned. Because again, when we look at kind of the whole system, we have 250,000 asteroids, these 5 planets, which Proto can go on a tangent about what may or may not be used in the future. But we never want to like devalue land directly by saying here's more land, and that's important.
Yeah, if we have space stations in the future, they'll probably have special things that you can do with them rather than like copying what you can do on an asteroid. There may be some crossover, but balancing is a very tricky thing there that we need to make sure we get right if we do add something like that. But that would be discovery or conflict, not exploitation. Korvac is asking, are market fees paid by the buyer or the seller or both? And I think, as I mentioned, like it's still TBD. We were considering like having them be entirely out of the sell side, so buyers would just pay 100% and they get what they paid for. The sellers would get like 95% of the fee or the payment, and the rest of it would come out of fees or whatever the fee percentage is. However, that has some complexities around like what then do bonuses do if you're a buyer? Like, does that make your overall cost cheaper? It gets kind of complicated. So maybe we'll just balance it between buyer and seller. So that's very much TBD, but we'll have an answer for you pretty soon.
The other interesting aspect of that you actually made me aware when we were designing these proto was a lot of the crypto exchanges have lower fees for limit buys and limit sells because essentially that's filling out liquidity. And that makes a lot of sense because to an extent, whenever you place the limit buy or sell, you're not guaranteed for your order to be filled. So no economic activity has taken place until somebody matches your order. But we want to incentivize that because you're still you have to lock up your product in escrow, whether it's your sway for the buy or your product itself for the sell. And people you need to incentivize that somehow. Otherwise, it'll be pretty hard for people to part with their stuff that they can't sell immediately, essentially.
Yeah, I think one option we were considering was actually allowing marketplace managers to have 4 separate fees for the limit buy, limit sell, market buy, and market sell. So you could actually set different levels if you wanted to, for example, incentivize liquidity by setting the limit buy and sell, to have a lower fee than the market buy and sell. I think that is probably less likely for exploitation, but more likely to upgrade it in the future, potentially. So, I think that's probably the route we're likely going to take. Let's see. So Skepa is asking, so it depends on which crew is active on the asteroid when we listed items. That will be the one way to make use of the market-related bonuses. It's whichever crew you take an action with. So the marketplace owner can manage the marketplace, like that's an action they would take to set settings on it basically. And when they do that, the bonuses that they have at that time are what's relevant for that. When you place a limit order, like a buy or sell order, or when you match with a market buy or sell order, the bonuses that your crew has at the time that you take that action are the ones that are relevant. So there's no concept of needing to keep a particular crew in a certain way. Like if you wanted to, you could set up your crew to be really high bonus for a certain set of crewmates, and then to do a particular action and then switch that. In exploitation, there may be more reasons to do that, but in the future, switching crew is actually supposed to be kind of costly. Like you hurt your experience growth. You lose certain efficiency bonuses. There are reasons to not want to just trade around your crewmates willy-nilly like that. In addition to the actual cost of time cost of having to bring those crewmates together to be able to switch the crew out. So I think there are going to be a few pressures against that in exploitation, and more pressures going forward to not do that in the future. But yeah, the current bonuses that you have are relevant when you take an action. That's the mental model to have there.
There's another question from Thunder about max amount of products on a marketplace, and the exact number isn't set. 10 to 50 is what the team's working on. I know I'd mentioned that earlier, but in terms of your question about can crew maybe affect that or skills based on that? Currently, I think, and Proto back me up or correct me if I'm wrong here. But no, I think there's a lot of nuances there with you being able to switch out crew and having the variability of the total items change due to that makes it pretty complex. But I know that for Discovery we've talked pretty heavily in terms of the opportunity to grow that and be able to specialize your markets, whether it's more products or in different ways. So I think look forward to hearing more about that in the future. But for now, I think it's just going to be a set single number of how many products you can list.
Yeah, I would say that that's not a final decision, but I think it's pretty likely that it'll be set for exploitation. As Etherway says, there's a lot of questions about what if you load up a marketplace with if you have a highly bonused crew and if you set it to have a large number of products in there and then you trade it to somebody else or you sell the asteroid that it's on or whatever, does that marketplace now is it suddenly a special marketplace that very few other people can match it with that number of products, and so it has some additional properties that it shouldn't because of who set it up or who managed it last, and then if you ever touch it again, it has to go down a lot. There's sort of some weird implications to to that. So we have to think about that carefully and make sure that's balanced before committing to something like that.
We've got Lewin here up here on stage that wanted to ask a question. Feel free.
Hey guys, first off, I mean, awesome work so far. I'm very excited. So I did have a question about, so it's showing like the displays the prices in like per kilograms, but of course we got to take consideration volume. Will there be an indication how we can tell how much volume these items take up when we purchase them? I mean, there's so many refined outputs that, I mean, I don't know if there's going to be like a standard size for any refined
Oh,
output.
what a great question.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer there is that there's a screen that we're not seeing, which is the final confirmation screen for the marketplace process. So what you're seeing here is just purely the trading side of things, like the price, and kilogram is like a standard unit for anything that is not quantized. There are things that are quantized, you know, like ship hulls and, you know, various parts like motors and things, where you'll see it's not per kilogram, but it's per unit. But kilograms can be treated as basically the unit. But so in this final screen where you confirm your order, you will see the volume there. That will include both the mass and the volume of what you're purchasing because you're selecting a destination inventory for those materials to go to. So that's a very relevant thing you need to see there when you're choosing, because sometimes you might not even be able to have space for, you know, that particular inventory that you selected for what you're trying to buy.
And great answer. And you're right. This is the like lineup. This is the setup approximate trade that I think I want to do screen. But the following screen, once I actually take this final action right here, is the hey, will it fit screen? Because you need to select a destination or a source inventory in both cases whenever you're buying or selling.
It's like the sort of details, you know, like you say, here's your intent. I want to buy or sell this, and then it's like, okay, how are you going to do it? Where's what you're going to sell? Where do you want to take what you're going to buy? You know, will it fit? Those kinds of questions.
So when you're on an asteroid, basically, you need to make sure that you have access. So you have whether a warehouse there on that asteroid, or let's say like transport another ship, where you can actually, when you buy items that you're going to transport, those purchased items too.
Yep, you need to be able to take delivery of what you buy, basically. And there's an interesting implication
with
ships in particular, where, you know, if you select a ship as the destination for, you know, something that you're buying, or any transfer, in fact, like if a ship is the destination for that, then until the materials get there, your ship is kind of locked down. Like you have to wait for stuff to get there before you can leave or take it off to orbit or whatever. So that's something to be very aware of when you're selecting a ship as a destination for something like this. Is, you know, it's going to be locked down until that gets there.
Yeah. Thanks for those questions. I think the volume one is a big play, especially when you're buying something like hydrogen.
Yep, super relevant.
Yeah. I apologize. Just one more question. I guess this when honestly, it's more of a production question, so I'll just ask it later.
I mean, feel free, but I think Fred would be happy to answer a question. We are time though, so just we can only take a few more questions.
Yeah, I'll just say it for later.
All right. Well, thanks for coming up and asking questions. I think this is. I'd love, if you guys want, by all means, come up on stage more often. But I understand. Maybe some of you guys don't like your voices being heard. So a few more questions before we kind of close it out. Can we select multiple destinations? Great question. I think under the current system, no. Like if you're buying a single order of items, they have to be put into a single warehouse. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you'd have to do multiple orders in order to put them into different places.
Yep, every single movement of materials in this game will have a single destination, a single source. You can sort of picture it that way. Sometimes, with surface transfers, you can have multiple things being transferred in that single transfer. That's not the case with market orders. You always have to have a single thing that you selected that you're buying or selling, just because that's how markets work. You can't mix a bunch of different things. But yeah, there's always a single source or destination.
Thunder, to your comment about how conflict might complicate things with a warehouse getting blown up or something. Absolutely. I mean, I think this is going to be so much fun. I mean, right now, maybe you guys are thinking like, oh my God, I don't want my warehouse blown up and all my goods to disappear. I mean, the thing here is by the time conflict arrives, like there's going to be like, hopefully millions of warehouses across the belt, and the chances of yours getting blown up might be pretty low. But even if it did happen, yeah, I mean, I think that does maybe complicate markets a little bit. But if you're buying something, it's pretty immediate. So, you know, if it's in travel to your warehouse and it gets blown up, yeah, I think that's an interesting, you know, fringe thing that might happen. Proto, maybe you could talk about
Just put some armor on your warehouse. Come
yeah,
on.
underground, you know, underground marketplace storage.
Yeah, I mean this is an interesting question mechanic wise because it sort of gets into like the restrictions that are placed on on buildings or ships, and like materials are being moved between them when crews are like active. Like what happens if a crew is at a refinery and the refinery gets blown up? It's like these kinds of questions that kind of intercede, like they're interrupts on things that we've otherwise tried to make uninterruptible that are supposed to be like work in a certain way and not any other way. I think there is certainly mechanics that we can do that do sort of implement these kind of quote unquote interrupts and figure out what the state of things are at that moment in time and then sort of go from there. It gets really complicated. So the answer there is like we'll have a lot of thinking to do for conflicts to make sure that there's a consistent set of rules that makes sense and isn't like ridiculously complicated that so that nobody can understand them. It needs to be relatively straightforward. So problem for future us.
Yeah, but I definitely think to the comment of Darius, bunker warehouse upgrade. I mean, I'd love to see that in conflict is like the ability to, you know, spend some more on a specialized warehouse that's like put underground and maybe is pretty close to indestructible, or would take just a lot more work to actually target it. Stealth warehouse upgrade. Yeah, we'll put mirrors all over it. But that doesn't mean that it
Ooh, a sneaky warehouse.
I was just a vehicle for a bad pun. I'm sorry.
Well, guys, I think we need to close this out. We're a little bit past time. Really appreciate everyone being here. Thank you, guys. In next AMA, so 2 weeks from today, we'll go over travel. Right now, where it's at right now blows the team's mind, but there's a lot more progress to go before I think we really want to start sharing that. I'm going to be pushing this AMA out to YouTube as soon as I possibly can. I will do my best to kind of put the images within the AMA. I'm not sure how well I'll be able to put the exact image Sergey was showing at the exact time he's talking about it, but I might be able to also dump a lot of these images into spoilers and put them on Twitter and in the Discord so that you guys can reference them and people can, you know, oogle them. So again, thank you everyone. Have a great day. And if you have other questions, just drop them in the general. We'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks everyone. Take care.
Indeed. Thanks, everyone. See you guys.
Take care.